Malik D, your financial credit guru, the hitmaker, the score. Welcome back to the next episode of The Score. Today, I want to introduce you to my co-host, Mr. Dan Green, tax accountant with Green Financial. Also, my co-host, Tyreek Bay, Jetson Life. And I have a very, very, very special guest and a friend of mine's, Miss London. Miss London, I don't want to mess up your last name because I'm used to messing up your last name. So can you tell them what your last name is, Miss London?
Sure. My name is London Smith Judicialiu.
How you doing, London?
I'm doing wonderful.
It's glad to see you here on the episode of The Score. And today we want to dive into talking about this political election that this took place, dealing with the different opinions and the different views from different genres, from different type of colors, creeds, race, and all that good stuff on how they view the situation that just took place with this election. But
Correct.
first, I want to introduce my viewers and my listeners to you. And I want you to break down to my viewers and listeners as how it is that you and I have first met with each other.
Yeah. So this was in probably my allergies are bothering me. I have 4 dogs.
That's okay.
They have me sneezing all day long. So we met probably. I was doing a reality show called Love That Sister, which was filmed in North Carolina,
Charlotte.
and I was reached out to by. By Malik, and he wanted to create a show around women in Charlotte that were getting it, that were business women, that were pursuing their dreams, and he actually came up with the idea, had me come down, audition, flew me out, treated me wonderfully, and then explained to me about his credit business, which that's not how he led with. He didn't lead with that.
Yeah.
And, you know, after, meeting with Malik, and at the time I was the only trans woman on the cast. So
Mm-hmm.
the cast was all cis women. I was the only trans woman on the cast. It was not mentioned that I would be a trans woman on the cast. Kind of a surprise to everyone. And Malik did not make it a big deal. Malik did not
Of
make me
course not.
feel.
Of course
Yeah,
not.
Malik did not make me feel uncomfortable. I felt very at home, and I was taken care of. And so at the time, I explained to Malik that I had wanted to go back to school and finish my grad school, and I had some other financial aspirations. My undergrad degree is in business. I went to Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia. I
Mm-hmm.
also went to AIU. And so at the time, Malik schooled me. He gave me the rundown on the importance of credit, and it being king. And that, like a lot of times, when we always talk about generational wealth with Black people, it's one of those things that, is often left off the conversations around generational wealth. And like, for so many people, when you look at like, some of our counterparts, they give their children a credit card, an authorized user card at like 18, and then their children are 18 years old and able to get out of college at 26 and can purchase a home. And people are wondering why. Well, it's because they gave their kids an authorized card, and it established them credit at 18 years old. And now they have like, the ability to, purchase a home and do all these great things that a lot of, unfortunately, Black community doesn't know about. So
From
I
the
was
lack of
very,
financial literacy.
from a lack of financial literacy. And from there, I ended up working through, I'm in house ballroom. I ended up getting what's called the Crystal LaBeija Fellowship for Financial Literacy. And the program that I established was to teach financial literacy specifically to LGBTQ plus community. And I did it at the Enoch Pratt Library. I worked for John Hopkins.
Mm.
And at the time, one of the projects that I was working on was capacity building and knowledge translation. And one of the things is that when you're doing research, when you're trying to get, information to key policyholders, they're trying to, it's hard for them to understand, these numbers, right? These statistics. And
Yeah.
so one of my job was to break the numbers down to them, but also it was to build capacity with the community so the community could understand, their financial strength and how to make finance work for them.
Mm-hmm. So what was your experience by actually soaking up the financial literacy in the game that I was giving you in reference to how you need to be moving out here financially to basically accomplish the things that you was looking to accomplish within your business and your career when it comes down to your credit and credit wise.
Well, it substantially helped me a lot. I mean, obviously, when jobs are looking for, I'm looking, people don't understand. Jobs do consumer reports. They not only do a background check, but they check a consumer report. They want to know if you're a liability. If you're someone who owes like
Absolutely.
all this money and they're going to hire you, you may be a liability of someone that could steal from the company, right?
Yeah.
But if they see that you have great credit, a great credit history, no bankruptcy, you're less of a liability. And so that opened up the doors to me being less of a liability to be hired and to get to move on and get jobs. I was the first trans woman to sit on a mayoral cabinet under
Mhm.
the Honorable Brandon Scott here in Baltimore, Maryland. Brandon appointed me as the first trans woman to sit on his cabinet. I was the first director of the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs for
Mhm.
the city of Baltimore. It was an honor to do so. And with that, you submit what's called financial disclosures. You have to submit certain things in certain documents, and just making sure that your ducks are in the row. Making sure that you're handling all those things are extremely important. And I was glad that I learned that from Malik early on. I learned that years ago, so that would have been like what 2016, 2015, and I
Yeah.
got this job in like 2022. So
Yeah.
I'm forever grateful to him for that. And I took that on and decided to make sure one thing is that I believe that there's a gift should continue to give, and when
Mhm.
you're blessed, you should continue the blessing. And I've been blessed. And so I wanted to keep that blessing with my community. And I did some financial literacy training with people. And I'm looking still to do that. Right now, it shows under the bottom that I'm the founder of the Richelieu School,
Mhm.
which I'm working on now, which is an LGBTQ affirming charter school. Well, it's a charter school, but the focus is so that students can be their authentic selves and avoid bullying, and that we will be focusing on things like policy and financial literacy and the tools that people need to be successful in life. It's not just about, we're in this Instagram culture now where everything is showy.
Yeah.
You want to show off. And I didn't come from that. I didn't grow up in that era. I'm a woman of a particular age. And it's unfortunate that we live in this council culture where a lot of the times we're not allowed to say what our true opinions are, or we're not allowed to say anything. And this great, this democracy, as we like to call it, we're not allowed to express ourselves, or we'll get counseled, or
So let
you're.
me ask you. So let me ask you this question without cutting you off. Let me ask you this question: what was some of your experiences from the financial literacy and the information and knowledge that I instilled in you to help you along with getting the type of business funding and personal funding that you needed to expound and to grow your business when you and I first hooked up with each other? Of course, up under different circumstances, as far as dealing with a reality TV show called Queens of the Queen City, like you said, that I was the creator and founder of here in Charlotte, North Carolina at the time. But what was some of the knowledge and information that I instilled in you and showed you and helped you credit wise on your personal credit report to put you in a position where you were able to go out there and obtain those type of business funding loans that you needed to obtain, and those personal loans to help you grow within your business?
Sure. So one of the things that was big for me is me understanding the Fair Credit Reporting Act, the FCRA, and that consumer credit information is fair, it's accurate, it's timely mannered, and it's to protect your privacy and your personal information. And it gives consumers the right to review their credit report and the correct information. And a lot of people don't understand how that works.
Mhm.
They don't understand, under Title V of like the Consumer Credit Protection Act, like they don't understand that. They don't understand that everything has to be accurate, that it has to be verifiable. People just can't have you owing things and it's not verifiable information, and that sometimes you can be a victim of identity theft and you don't even
Absolutely.
know it. We live in this world of technology, and cybersecurity is everything is so big. People are stealing identities. I mean, look at I get emails constantly telling me that my password has been compromised, or my social has been compromised, or someone's using my password. And I'm getting these alerts. And so it's important to constantly check your credit to make sure that these things are there. And you want to make sure credit's great, because how can you purchase a home? And when we talk about generational wealth, and we talk about the importance of it, home ownership is extremely important. And there are a lot of opportunities out here that people don't even know about, and they don't take the time to get to know. And that's something that we probably will get to talking about later when we talk about some of the political things locally, that people are just unaware of.
So, what was your journey and your experience from start to finish? Your journey and your experience from start to finish, that when you first came to me and retained my services, and we actually dove deep into your credit profile as to what your credit profile was at that time and what it was after I finished cleaning you up, and the time frame that it took me to get your credit and your credit scores and your credit portfolio structured back right, and your credit scores where they needed to be for you to make those powerful business moves that you made.
Yeah, it was a very short time. Actually, I was away. I want to say I was in London. Like, so I was actually out of the country. I was in London, and I just remember us communicating while I was in London, and getting you all the information that you needed in enough time to handle everything you needed to handle. Seeing the discrepancies that were there. Some of the things again, some things remain on your credit, and they're there for like they're a 7-year period or whatever,
Yeah,
and they're supposed to fall off.
yeah,
Sometimes they don't fall off, and some things were not, they were not the same on each bureau. But Malik was able to go through, do an efficient analysis. He does an analysis, um, and he did the fair analysis, and then from there doing whatever he needed to do with reporting. And then people also forget about the Federal Trade Commission, and there are all these different laws, that govern,
yeah.
consumer credit, report records, and that promote fairness and accuracy and fairness. And if we don't know those laws, then how can you take advantage of them? And we have to leverage that knowledge, to make sure that we put in an advantageous place.
But I,
Unfortunately, Black people for so long have not been in that advantageous place. We're trying to get caught up with so much stuff, and that's what we're going to probably get into when we talk about this political conversation about us just getting into that equity. We start talking about equality and equity, and the difference between the two, and that we do have equality now, right? What, 50, 60 years we just getting the right to vote.
yeah,
um but there's a big difference between having equality and having equity.
yeah,
And I think that when you're dealing with your credit and making sure your credit is there, you can be drop broke, right? Like let's
yeah,
say you could lose your job today or tomorrow, right? And I'm dealing with some things personally, that in my life, career wise, and moves that I'm trying to make, and some transformations and changes. And, maybe what I'm used to making salary wise isn't the same.
yeah,
But if you have access to credit, and
yes.
you have a good, and you're using and you're utilizing that credit, then you're good, right? Because you have access to funds that you may otherwise not. And then long as you're making sure that you are paying them back, and that you're keeping your utilization rate low, right?
Exactly.
I also was taught by Malik about like having, a good credit mix, revolving credit, installment credit, understanding that,
I like that. I like
yeah,
that from you. I
yeah.
like that. Keep breaking it down,
Yeah,
sister.
like I like that one of the things was having the it's like five. It was, I remember, it was like a pie chart he showed me, and like in the pie chart is how you knew what was important. Late payment, like payments, was one part. Then it's like the credit mix, which can be mortgage, installment loans, like a mortgage, or your car. And then you have, like, of course, you have, a bank credit card. And then you have what's called like authorized user cards. Like, everything, like, they all vary in how your score changes. And there, and even after dealing with Malik, there are, things that I learned, just from doing my own reading about some things that you think that you're doing to help your credit, that is not really helping, right? Like, you may have a derogatory, and you go pay it,
Yeah.
and then it's there, and it really wasn't your derogatory, but you're paying it off because you just want it off, instead of just really verifying it and making sure this is actually your debt. And so I also learned to have a by expanding the available credit, right? That if you are to just say use more on one card,
Yeah.
your total utilization rate is what's calculated, not off of the one card. So the more cards you have, and especially with high rates, you have more option, and your utilization can stay at that 15%. Malik used to always try to tell me, stay below the 15% utilization rate.
Yep.
I try to stay always below that amount. And I got like a approval, like a 2.9% for like a car. Like, I mean, I was just
At that time when
ecstatic
at that
at that
time
time,
when the
at
rates
that
was
time
that.
when the rates were that.
Yeah.
And I was working at Hopkins, and I was excited. I was excited. I had a new job. I had a new car. Like, it was just things were looking up. I just got a new place, a great place. I had a great job. And then I was about to get married. Like, it was just things were going great. I had actually finished school. I was able to go back and apply because of the cleaning of my credit. I was able to get what's called Grad Plus loan. So I was able to then go ahead and complete my degrees and move forward with my life and just put myself in a better place.
Let's
And
ta-
I think that that's really important for people to understand and know.
let's take a quick commercial break so we can pay the bills. My name is Malik Davis. I'm effective and I'm efficient when it comes down to producing those credit results. I don't play around. Yeah, I have a lot of shrewdness with me and a lot of aggressiveness with me, but I get the job done and my clients appreciate that.
There's a dude by the name of Malik. We call him Malik, the credit guru. He goes in and cleans up everything.
What type of clients do I service? I service them all. Blue collar, white collar, doctors, lawyers, actors, singers. Doesn't matter who you are. I don't have time for your games. I don't have time for your bullshit. Either you want your credit fixed or either you don't.
And one of the reasons why my credit is incredible because I got Malik Davis 211 credit guru. This is not an endorsement. This is knowledge.
Either you want your credit fixed or either you don't. Either you want me to properly educate you and lead you to where you need to be led so you can obtain the things that you need to obtain, or you don't. You seeking my services out. Don't tell me what it is that you want to do when you're seeking my services out, because I'm telling you what you need to do.
No matter how much money you got, that credit got to be right. So I can always depend on my boy Malik Davis to make sure my credit is always right. No matter how much money you got in this world, your credit is crucial. Make sure it's clean, make sure it's tight, make sure it's right. Check him out.
Welcome back to the score. Miss London, let's go ahead and resume on. Well, I want to kind of switch it up a little bit, and I want to go now from you actually experiencing that experience with me, and you still a client of mine and still a good friend of mine, and will remain to be a good friend of mine. You know what I mean? I want to shift it a little bit, and I want my co-host to get engaged in the dialogue with you from, basically dealing with this election, dealing with things, basically how things have impacted you now from the past 4 years of the Democrats running. Of the Democrats being in power for the past 4 years, on how that has impacted you financially and economically and politically. So I want my co-hosts to get involved with you a little bit more in discussing that.
Yeah, I guess I can let them ask questions. What I will say is that I I worked in the government. I worked for the government. I was a proud um member of the Brandon Scott administration. So I worked for the Democratic. I am a Democrat. Um, I well I work and I work for the. Well, I don't really. I try not to talk about political affiliations just because one of the things unfortunately is that nowadays jobs and stuff. Look, my mother has always told me the two conversations that you should never have is around religion and around politics, because people are going to always like kind of like it'll turn like into this crazy
Yeah.
thing of like arguing opinions, and we can argue those all day long.
Especially in
But
today's environment.
yeah, but and, as a requirement, with my job and with working in the administration, obviously I had to be a registered voter and a Democrat. I mean, that is a known fact. So that was a part. That's one of the requirements, obviously, when you're working with a Democratic administration.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a registered voter, and I vote. As a matter of fact, I had surgery on election day,
Mm.
and I made it my business to do early voting. I sit in a long line, but I wanted to make sure I cast my vote this election season. And, this is a big election. This is extremely important. The lines were long. Um, the enthusiasm was there.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that was lacking. I think that, for one, what really stems and really pushes forth a candidate is enthusiasm. And what we had with Kamala, though she was selected in a manner that is not traditional, um, and a lot of people are skeptical around the democratic way in which she was chosen, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
people are questioning, was this the right candidate, right? Was she the right person? She was picked by Biden. She didn't win the vote to be vice president. Like, people are all like, everyone's asking a lot of different questions, right? Some of them that don't matter. Like, is she black? Is she white? They're asking questions that honestly don't matter, right? But the other part is, a lot of people are asking a valid question, which is, was she the right candidate? And was she chosen the right way? Because this has never happened in history. Think about it. This is the first time in history that we have someone who was a previous president going against someone who was currently in office. So you have two records to judge by at one time. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that has never happened in history. Think, if someone's ever running for president, they've been in office and they're either running for term again, but you can never judge their record against the other person's record in office. And this is the first time in history that that happened, where you could judge the current situation with the previous situation. And I
Dan,
think
you
that
want to
that's what
chime
makes
in?
this a little different.
No, there was one other. I'm trying to remember Grover Cleveland. There was one other case where you did have that happen. Grover Cleveland lost. He ran for re-election, lost, and then after the guy who defeated him, and I cannot remember his name now, I'm brain locking. But then he won again. So Trump this is the second time it's happened.
No, but the,
And
but, but the guy that ran against him was never in office before.
right,
So, no, so what I'm saying is that this is the first time that you have two acts. So Kamala was literally in the White House at the time, so she has a standing record, even though she's vice president. And they would judge the record of Biden, of course, as hers, but they have a record to go by as into what her work could be, opposed to a person who is just running for reelection again against a person who's never been in office. Do you understand what I
oh, okay,
mean?
I see what you're saying.
So it's like she's currently in office, right now. And one of the
Right,
things that
it would have been different if he was running against Biden again. I understand what you're
I
saying.
think that, strategically, and again, I always say that, we live in this council culture, and it's so frightening that people are not able to speak. But listen, as a black trans woman, as a member of one of the most vulnerable populations, I believe in centering the voices of the most vulnerable, and I'm going to center my voice right now, and I'm going to just speak and just say that, like,
Yes.
I feel, you know, I feel like we were kind of not given an option, right? And that Biden took a long time, and he held on for too long to make the decision, and that really, quite frankly, affected the election, right? Because there were already some skepticisms. You have people skeptical around his current policies and the economy that we're in, right?
Let me
And
ask you this question. I'm gonna let you continue to keep moving on, but were you better off economically, financially, up under the Democrats administration? Were you better off then, or better off when Trump was in office, when he was the president at the
well,
time?
it's really hard for me to say, and that's due to some um we get like personnel issues, as far as like me and my job, and like when I was working. What I will say is that I am no longer in my position at the office at the mayor's office. So right now, financially for me, it is extremely hard for me.
Mhm.
But while working there, even though I was making a salary, and my salary again was also a questionable thing, right? When we talk around equity, um, my salary was something that I felt was questionable compared to what other people in the same range were making compared to me, even though I'm educated with degrees and
Mhm.
and they had a whole big conversation around, pay equity. One of the things that I've learned to do, and I learned this also from you, Malik, is advocating for myself. And
Yes.
so I advocated for myself and advocated around getting a better salary. And I ended up, towards the end getting it. But the thing is that even making the amount, and I'm blessed. I was blessed to even make what I was making, and
Mhm.
and I was not able to pay my rent. So I can't say how much I made, but what I will say is that my rent and my check would, like, it would just gobble up the check. And if I was able, and I made a nice salary, above, way above like what the normal, I guess, above poverty line.
Mhm.
But when I would pay rent, because one of the requirements when you work, so when you work for city government and you work so close to, like, in a high position, you
Yeah.
have to live in the city. It is a requirement, and the prices of rent are extremely high. I live in, one of these gentrified areas, that
You in
is
Baltimore, Maryland, right?
in Baltimore.
Yeah.
My street is full of vacants. If I go outside my door right now, there are people outside drunk laying on the ground. Like, and the amount that I pay for where I live is astronomical, right? And when I would get my check and I would pay, have to pay that rent, and I would say, we would get cost of living. So one of the great things, and I will say this about working for the city of Baltimore, one of the great things that we used to have what was called a cost of living wage increase. And so in the summertime, you may get like a 2% increase to your salary, which kind of could help out a little bit. Nothing major, you really wouldn't feel it. um but I was blessed, right, to be employed and have that opportunity. So I don't want to complain about that, because there's so many other people who are homeless
Yeah,
in
but the
our
question
city.
that I yeah, but the question that I asked you though, up under the Biden Harris administration, financially, how has that impacted you financially up under the Biden Harris administration for those past 4 years? Because see, a lot of people are out here bleeding, they out here struggling, they out here financially strapped. So have you been affected? How has your financial life been impacted up under the Biden Harris administration versus that when Donald Trump was in office, and now with him now being elected as the 47th president of the United States of America? How can you factor that in from your financial economic situation up under these past 4 years? Because a lot of people seem to forget that because they got so caught up into the identity politics, and that
Yeah.
they use so many of these celebrities and entertainers out here to blind these individuals and to woo these
Well, yeah,
individuals
let's
out
talk
here.
about identity politics, because I mean, let's get to that. So, unfortunately, I it's hard for me to answer, because I lost having a salary because I no longer had a job.
Got you.
Um, I no longer had a job that I loved, a job that I was the first to do, a job that I was met with so much fanfare. I received numerous awards.
Mm.
I was the received 25, the Baltimore Sun's top 25 women to watch. I received the Torch Award from Mac Cosmetics. I received multiple awards for the work that I was doing. Um, and I got sick. And when I got sick, I was working still hard.
Mm.
I was from my hospital bed working hard. I was told by my doctor, you need to stop. We need to keep your blood pressure down. I was, so just to give the backstory, I was in New York. I had just gotten accepted into an MBA program at Hofstra for the executive MBA program. It's the $85,000 a year program. I had gotten a scholarship. It was partial. I would go on Saturdays, but it would be online through the week. But on Saturdays, I would take the train up and I would go. I was the only Black woman in the program. I was the only trans woman in the program. And all of the class were full of medical doctors. All medical doctors were getting their MBAs. So I was honored to be in this space. Um, and I felt sick while there. After getting a translated surgery, I ended up becoming ill, and I was in the hospital for a month.
Mm-hmm.
An entire month. I was stuck in New York alone. No one was there with me. My family. I was alone. I didn't receive a flower, a card. Are you okay? Anything
By
from a
who?
place
By who?
from my job, from a place that I dedicated so much of my time to, for the reason I actually end up getting sick, right? Because I still wanted to go to work when instead of healing, I wanted to work for my community. I wanted to get up every day and work hard for the community that needed my help, that I put my own health and safety to the side
Hold that
and end
thought.
up getting sick.
Hold that thought. Let's take a quick commercial break so we can pay the bills. My name is Malik Davis. I'm effective and I'm efficient when it comes down to producing those credit results. I don't play around. Yeah, I have a lot of shrewdness with me and a lot of aggressiveness with me, but I get the job done and my clients appreciate that.
There's a dude by the name of Malik. We call him Malik, the credit guru. He goes in and cleans up everything.
What type of clients do I service? I service them all. Blue collar, white collar, doctors, lawyers, actors, singers. Doesn't matter who you are. I don't have time for your games. I don't have time for your bullshit. Either you want your credit fixed or either you don't.
And one of the reasons why my credit is incredible because I got Malik Davis 211 credit guru. This is not an endorsement. This is knowledge.
Either you want your credit fixed or either you don't. Either you want me to properly educate you and lead you to where you need to be led so you can obtain the things that you need to obtain, or you don't. You seeking my services out. Don't tell me what it is that you want to do when you're seeking my services out, because I'm telling you what you need to do.
No matter how much money you got, that credit got to be right. So I can always depend on my boy Malik Davis to make sure my credit is always right. No matter how much money you got in this world, your credit is crucial. Make sure it's clean, make sure it's tight, make sure it's right. Check them out.
Welcome back to the school. Miss London, go ahead and resume on.
Yeah, and so, um, and with that being said, you know, I was excited because I was in this MBA program and I knew that, I would be done with that in March, the summer. The program came with a trip to Europe at the end where you worked with a company. I was excited. When I looked at that photograph and I saw all the people in the picture, and I was the only Black woman in that photograph. And I was also the only trans woman in that photograph with all those white men. It was something that just, I've always been a first.
Yeah.
Right. And for me, and so this election for me, even watching with Kamala, was important because I love seeing a first. I love participating in a first. I loved voting in the election when Obama would have been the first. Voting in this election around a first. And people don't understand the struggle and the weight on your back when you are a first, and all that you have to prove. You have so much more to prove. And there's no blueprint when you're a first. There's no groundwork. There's nothing that's laid there for you when you're a first. Nothing, there's no model, or there's no paradigm for you to go. And the strategy, even with this strategy, is something that it's hard to build out because you are a first. And so with that being said, I came home and I ended up getting sick again in December because I continued to do the work. I was under a strict regimen that I was supposed to go and get these treatments every day. I do this treatment, but because I wanted to do the work for my community, I valued my community so much. I was in crisis that I was missing my treatments, and I got sick again. And I came back in January to
Of 2023 or 2024?
2024 this year. After being in the hospital, after building out a framework, building out a strategy, after testifying for the trans health equity law, which now makes it legal for Medicaid in Baltimore, in Maryland, to pay for transitional surgeries in Maryland, for me testifying for, the municipal IDs, for me, working with organizations, like multiple organizations in this city to try to get their footprint here, trying to get them funded. I came back to feeling lost because I didn't have that job anymore.
Mm.
And so immediately I had to go into survival mode. And it left me to question a lot around performative politics, and how performative politics can really be, and how detrimental, like cutthroat politics can be.
Mm.
Because one minute you're the queen of the Nile, and you're met with all this fanfare. I mean, there was news article after news article. I was on stations, but when I left, no one even knew I was no longer in my position.
With you doing everything with you doing everything for your community, even though you had got sick, and of course, like you just stated, you was representing the Democrat Party and administration real hard for your community,
Hmm.
and with them using your image and likeness, and certain things that you carry with you as far as your influence. Do you feel as though that you was being used and thrown away?
The funny thing is that I don't want to, I don't want to make anything a personal attack or anything personal or be emotional. I just know how I felt in the moment. And again, time heals wounds. I've never publicly spoken on this. I've never talked about it. I've never bashed the administration.
Mm.
I still hold the mayor to high esteem. He's a great guy. Was doing transformative work. I would love to work, with them again, and work with the administration again. I was happy. I was extremely happy. So I had the opportunity to hire a trans woman in my office. And so when it's the gift that keeps on giving, like I explained, when you taught me about the financial literacy, one of the things that I learned, unfortunately, in life is that no good deed goes unpunished.
Mm.
And I decided to hire a trans woman in my office as an assistant, and to shadow me, and basically, like, as and do like shadow me, and kind of do some of the, just the extra things I needed help with.
Mhm.
I would have to do the opera. I would be conceptualizing and doing the operation of the
We get it.
office,
Yeah.
but they were there to assist me. And I wanted to give the opportunity to another trans woman because, again, this is about, even with this thing with Biden giving Kamala an opportunity and giving someone else a chance, sometimes it's about us trying to give someone a chance that oftentimes don't get a fair chance, just to see what they will do with that opportunity. Because that
Mhm.
chance can be so transformative and life changing for not only them, but the community and the world. Um, and I not only gave an opportunity to a trans woman, but I fought for her to get a salary that was more comparable to mine, or at least closer in the range, because to fight above midpoint, because I believe in real equity, right? I believe in true equity and true fairness. And this is like a hard topic for me to really talk about. And it's something that is so personal that this is the first time I've ever publicly spoken about this. This is
Mhm.
the first time I've ever addressed this to anybody in
Yeah.
any space. And again, I don't want to go too deep into it,
Right.
but the circumstances of how I left were ones that really hurt me because there was no reason for why.
Got you.
I
That
had an I
right.
had a I had a my performance record was outstanding. My personnel file, which was what, there were no marks. I had nothing written up bad about me.
Right.
One of the things that I did do is that I attempted to get that same surgery that I fought for, which was the trans health equity surgery. And I applied for the surgery and my insurance approved it. I was excited.
Mhm.
Um, I had a meeting with the doctor. It took almost 2 years for me to even get, because the original
Right.
doctor left. And I got approved. I mean, it was a long process. Like, I had to go through like so much because they had to get a new doctor there. And we finally got a date. When I got the date, I met the doctor for the first time. She let me know I was beautiful. She thought I was
Mhm.
smart. She was,
Mhm.
giving me all the basic compliments. And that was our first meeting.
Yeah.
Our second meeting was over a Zoom call. And during the Zoom call, she said to me, she said, "Hey, London, I saw you at the governor's house for the signing of the trans health equity bill. I didn't know if it would be appropriate to speak to you, but I saw, I wanted to thank you so much for you testifying and making it possible for this to happen. I mean, obviously, this is something that is going to be lucrative for her as a surgeon. She's going to be getting." It's a monopoly on who's doing the surgeries, right?
Right.
Like, there's only like two or three doctors, and again, that's when we start talking about capacity building, and which will, we can go further into around expanding and not monopolizing things, right?
Mhm.
Like, when we talk about tokenizing, and that is a big problem, right? It's like
Yeah.
things often get tokenized, and a lot of things are performative, and then you got to really question people's sincerity and their like, and are they genuine with what they're doing.
Mhm.
And so when I was given this role, and it was such a big deal, you would think that there would be a press release sent out, saying, "Hey, by the way, you know something, we have a new." None of that ever happened,
Wow.
right? And this was during the political season, and
Yeah.
so I was hurt. I was deeply hurt. I kept it to myself. I suffered in silence.
Who was you hurt by?
um I was hurt by the mayor.
Okay,
I was
gotcha.
hurt by I was hurt by the mayor. I was hurt by the CAO.
Miss
Um,
Dealer Richelieu, were you terminated, or was it just a mutual parting of the ways? What was the ultimate? Why were
well,
you,
the
why
thing
did
is,
you
is that
leave the city? The city's
so
important.
the thing is that um, I don't.
I know
I
you have
think
to be careful about some of the stuff you say,
yeah.
so you know what I mean.
So no. So what I will say is, there was no malfeasance. There was nothing egregious done. I did nothing wrong. When you are a cabinet member, you serve at the pleasure of. So at any point in Maryland, we're an at-will state, and so one of the things that this has kind of helped me to look towards is addressing these at will policies, right? Because if we're talking about, and that's in my purview, right? So if I am director of LGBTQ affairs, and that's my community, and we're talking about all these laws, like around these Supreme Court laws that have passed that protect LGBTQ rights,
Mhm.
right? But you still have laws on the books that are called at will firings. Someone can say at will they don't like that you have a black dress on and then fire you, so they can use that as an excuse to cover up discrimination, right? Like, how does that work? Because it can't, you can't have the two. It's like it's conflicting. You can't have laws on the books that are protective and then have something called an at will policy that allows you to fire for any reason, right?
And
Um,
you would think that's contrary to the tenets of the Democratic Party.
Well, and
Uh,
you would think that it's contradictory to the fact that that you're hiring someone who's not only a subject matter expert, but someone who is a part of a vulnerable population
mhm.
that you yourself have seen me come in and plead about the epidemic of homelessness, um, health concerns, social determinants of health, to place me in that same boat, which I am in now, in a
Mm.
survival mode, right? I am the same people that I fought for. I am in the same boat of all the people that I fought for every day. And no one has chosen to fight for me. No one has chosen to stand up and ask any questions for me.
Do
And
you feel as though you've been let down by your Democratic Party? I mean, I
Yeah,
mean, have you feel as though that you have been abandoned?
I don't want to completely say the Democratic Party per se, like as a whole, but if we're
But that
talking
particular
about
administration, right?
if we want to talk about like administration wise, I feel as though like again, I feel like I've reached out. I feel like a conversation could have been had with me.
Mm,
I'm a brilliant woman. I was the first. Um, I was always told that I was doing great work and things were going great, and to not even reach out when everyone knew that I was not well, to even see that if I was okay, if I was still sick, like if I'm fine, I didn't even get that. I didn't
mm,
get that when I was at work and someone was sick. I sent flowers. I gave my assistant. My last day of work, she was hungry. She said she had no money. Who do you think fed her that day? I did. Do you think that she ever sent me a email or a text or asked me was I okay or anything? No. What
mm,
they did was they made her the interim director of the office. And again, that goes back to identity politics. It's safe. If you get rid of me, but you replace me with somebody that's trans and somebody that doesn't, that may not have the same qualifications as me, or the same acumen, but when you get into the idea of identity politics, it just looks fair, right? It looks good. It doesn't look like an EEOC claim,
mm.
and I'm the type of person that, you know, I I don't ever want to be looked at as a liability. And so I instead didn't even go and try to file litigation. I didn't try to make a big deal about it because I knew God had something greater for me. And that's when I decided to come and found the Richelieu School. And again, I loved working for the city of Baltimore. It brought me. There was nothing that brought me more joy in this world than working for the city of Baltimore. And what would have been, what would have really helped to heal me was the conversation.
What do you think about those celebrities and all those entertainers and Hollywood elites that was brought out to influence the masses to vote for Kamala Harris when they was bringing all these celebrities out? How did you feel about that?
I felt traumatized. You know
Why?
why? For so long as a black trans woman, even when I was at Morehouse and Spelman, and you become friends with people. A lot of times when you're a member of community, people look at you like you're like, I say, a court jester. You're entertainment, you're comedy. If ever I tell people that I'm trans, and the first thing they're asking me is, oh, do you do hair, makeup? They don't ask me, do you have a degree in law, or did you go to medical school? That's not what they ask me, right? They
Yeah.
already have kind of placed an idea on who they think that I am. And, oftentimes in these spaces, even in these professional workspaces, it's that same sentiment. Like, people
Mm,
are worrying about what you're wearing to work and your fashion and how you're looking and how you're presenting and this like superficial type of a thing. And it's like your entertainment. You're thought of as entertainment. And it leads me to question, like, are people genuinely concerned about the rights of people in community and their struggles, or are some of the things that people doing performative? Are
Do
they
you
is there do you really want to see me have the ability to thrive, not survive,
mm.
but thrive? When I worked in my office, I worked to make people thrive. I wanted to see people thrive. I wanted to see people. That was the whole purpose of me hiring another.
ma'am, quick question. Do you think that certain politicians infantilize blacks and black uh, people in the transsexual community too? Do you think, and in a lot of cases, that's what they do? They more or less uh,
Tokenized.
have that paternalistic attitude towards us, where they feel like they have to take care of us, or they soft bigotry of low expectations and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. I think so. One of the things that happens is I call it like like the guilt, right? Like how people say like white guilt, or like
Mhm.
like there's that guilt thing. So do you remember like around the time when like George Floyd when everything happened with George Floyd, there
Mhm.
was this big like concern around like, oh, companies changing their corporate responsibility. We haven't
Mhm.
heard any like, you know, things are in the news for 48 hours and then they just disappear, right? Like we
Yeah.
don't hear about them anymore. Okay. And so when that happened, all these companies, Ubers and the list, everybody wanted to donate money and they wanted to do this for
Millions and
Black community,
millions.
millions, all this mobilization, similar to what happened with the Kamala campaign, right? Like, which it was a great thing to see, like to see Black women, which I jumped on many of those calls, where Black women mobilized, right? Black men mobilized, and I saw the coalition building. I was impressed. I was excited. It was enthusiastic because, and I started to think, imagine if we could just mobilize to really change the world and really be empathetic towards the problems of so many people, the homeless people that are outside, the guy, the person that's right up next door to my house right now who needs a Narcan, who I recently just had to, thank God I have Narcan in the house. Provide them a Narcan. What does it like feel like to mobilize and put Narcan stations on each corner in Baltimore City where we have we just had this huge lawsuit around, and that got this, which shout out to our city solicitor Ebony Thomas, who's a beast. She's a beast. And she's a Black woman. She's the first, woman to Black woman to be our city solicitor, and she's a lesbian. I'm extremely proud of her. She's an amazing person. And she has fought tirelessly against the opioid companies and got some of the opioid remediation. I mean, some of the like restitution. But I think that Baltimoreans need to be brought into that conversation of where that, because we, a lot of us have been the ones that have been affected by the opioid epidemic, right? The government, yes, there's of course issues with like the police and those type of things, but people's families have been affected. I've lost some of my closest friends to fentanyl. Like they thought they may have been taking a pill that someone gave them at a party,
And it was laced with fentanyl.
and or smoked the weed, and and they're gone.
Mhm.
And they're gone, right? And so a lot of us have all suffered. I've had to pull out a Narcan and use a Narcan so many times on people. And one of the things that I had suggested when I was in office, besides like working with, one of the things that I also thwarted was the monkeypox epidemic, right? So monkeypox was first coming here. I worked diligently with our Department of Health to create a a monkeypox strategy, so
Yeah.
that we did not have that problem in Baltimore, thanks to our my former boss who became our deputy mayor, Dr. Letitia DeRaza. Shout out to her. But she helped Baltimore on the, at at the forefront when it came to COVID. We had some of the best COVID responses in the country, you
Right.
know. Um, and again, like I said, I hold no ill will towards, you know, I, towards my old, employer or anything. Things happen. There's things that can always change. There's always can be miscommunications, and then sometimes you never know what people are doing behind your back. The
But do you
danger.
feel as though, but I don't mean to cut you off, but do you feel as though that the Black community was properly engaged and represented in this in this election that took place, even though they brought all the celebrities out and these Hollywood elites out? Do you feel as though the Black community was properly engaged and represented during that election?
I think people do the same thing they always do to Black people. They dumb us down. I feel like
Amen to
I,
that.
I feel like people think that all we are shucking and jiving.
Bread and
You got
circuses. You've heard the expression bread and circuses?
and
Yeah.
and I was upset about that, because there's
Yeah.
so many intelligent, you know transformative Black women. I mean, the Stacey Abrams, shout out to Stacey Abrams. I went to, she's a graduate of Spelman. I
She's a
went to
brilliant lady.
her brother Walter was my close friend at school. And so, and I know the amazing woman that she is. There's so many different transformative women that could come out and have been, they're saying that so many people were paid for endorsements and like $1 billion was raised, and it's amazing to see. But can you imagine if
She's $20
we as a
million
Black,
in the hole now.
yeah, but can you imagine if we as a Black community were mobilized, and as we're talking around this reparations and so forth, like where was any of those conversations, right? Like where were the conversations around the reparations that we still have not gotten? It's like, shout out to Barbara, to Senator Lee, who has passed on, but
Sheila Jackson
Congressman
Lee.
Lee, Sheila Jackson Lee, who was like definitely working towards that, who I've met and who's a great person. What happened to those conversations? I think that the Black agenda needs to be. We need to learn how to unify in a way where we can mobilize and coalition build the same way we were able to coalition build
I
and
don't
get
think
the
that ever
money.
happened though. I don't think that ever take place and transpire like that, because like me and my co-host Dan has talked about so many times, it's mainly dealing with a lot of this bread and circuses bullshit that's going on out here. When you're dealing with people of high calibers, people that are educated, you're dealing with people that have some type of level of influence and things like that. And you right.
Hmm. Well, that's what they were calling the boot. Like, I watched. I am a person who, I'm a very open-minded person. I listen to liberals, I listen to Democrats, I listen to everybody's point of view, right? Like, because you cannot come up with like an educated thought unless you see all points of view, right? Like,
Yeah,
I gotta listen to everybody. Like, I
yeah,
can't,
I
like,
agree.
I gotta see everything. And I listen to Pink Book lessons sometimes, and she's always talking about City Girl Mayor. They talk about that one, the City Girl Mayor, um, and some of the topics and things like the concerns that were being brought up, like I felt like people were not honoring, like they were looking at us as a monolith, which is what they do with trans and Black community and LGBT community. They often look at us as a monolith, like we're like all of us are all the same, right? Like we all have the same struggles and we all want the same things, and that's not true. And not all Black people want to see Meg Thee Stallion twerk. And not all Black people want to see Beyonce get up in the indoors. And not all Black, like, people think that that is what the answer is. And that is
A
not what it is.
celebrity, a
Yeah, yeah,
celebrity.
by celebrities. And then especially, and if these celebrities are being paid, is that really an endorsement? And so like I I I felt like a lot of that was questionable. I think that what would have really been more impactful and more strategic this was a grassroots effort, and I think that highlighting how grassroots this was and really, really uplifting that and elevating that could have gotten way more people involved,
Yeah,
because I think that becomes a turnoff to people, and even to like, you listen. I know
big turn off.
a lot of people are saying that they're questioning Black men's vote, but Black women also didn't turn out and vote as well, according to some of the poll numbers I looked at. They didn't vote the way. I mean, there are 8 states, so there were 8 key states.
But you got a lot of these Black people out here, these Black community I mean, these Black men, these Black women. I mean, they in a financial strut right now. They financially bleeding. They
Right.
voting from their pocketbooks. They voting
Yeah.
from their bank accounts.
Yeah, so think about, so there were 8 swing states, right? And so and ironically, those senators, which were Democrats, made it. They won, but but Trump won in those states. But the senators in those states won. The Democratic senators won, and so it
Except
leaves
for
a lot
two.
of
Except
questions.
for two.
So it leaves questions around, like, some of the misogyny, and again,
Yeah.
we cannot leave this room without talking about misogyny and misogynoir and all those other issues that systemically affect, how this goes, even when it went back to Hillary running and being a woman and getting the popular vote, and the question is, are we ready for a woman president when we're supposed to be such a progressive country, right? Why are we so regressive? And when you look at this, like, and as I look at this election and what's happening, it seems like a lot of things are getting regressive, and not necessarily around like just the policies, but just think about it.
But the
We're
policies is but the policies is a key factor though. The policies
Yeah.
is definitely a key factor, because if you compare her policies, which she could not state what any of her policies were, versus Donald Trump's policies, and versus what Donald Trump has done before based off his
From
policies.
an economic standpoint.
from an
Yeah,
economic standpoint.
Not even
right. And
close.
that was the thing I was saying. For me, the part that I kept, urging and kept saying is that I want to see her stand on policy, and but the hard thing for her in this particular situation is that she was already a part of an administration. So it's very hard
That's
for
a fair
her
point.
to prove, like,
What you say, Dan?
I said that was a fair point that she was tied to Biden.
yeah, like she was tied to Biden, and it was an unfair, an unfair opportunity for her because she couldn't really prove herself because was connected to him. And you know what? I think honestly, and this is just me, I think Biden should resign so that she could get the opportunity to be the 47th president right now,
Why?
and he should
Like one
resign.
of
Why?
that's like what one of her advisor, her top advisor. I can't think of the guy's name. He suggested that Biden would do that, but Biden's not going to do that.
Yeah,
No.
but of course, that just like he waited this long because he
Yeah.
waited this long. You know why? Because well, I don't want to. If you know Biden's history of how he,
Yes, I know him
got it.
quite well. Believe
Okay,
me.
okay, you got of his struggles to get to presidency and get into office, and this was something that he just couldn't wait to like get into, and to
Right.
finally just say that he did. It's like not even if he necessarily wanted it, but like the struggles that he went through to get in there, and some of the things that he's passed in the past. I have my opinions on some things around Biden that he's done in the past and so forth. But what would be historic to do is since you decided that you wanted to wait last minute and mess her chances up, then you should resign right now and let her stand that we could say that in history, even if it's for 45 days or whatever days, that we had a black woman president and or a woman president, whatever race, we had a woman president because this country, unfortunately, there we deal with a lot of misogyny and it's unfair. Men deciding on women's bodies. It's just a lot of unfairness when it comes to a lot of the misogyny that goes on in this country. But that would be a great stand for him to take because I mean, if you watch him, and even when it was time for him to go and cast his vote, he was not there. It was like he was just not here. He's the most unpresent president I've ever seen. Like, I've never you never hear about him, you never see him around, and so a lot of that was questionable, and so that gets placed on Kamala, and people forget that she's just the vice president. She's the president of the Senate. She's there to for tie breaking votes in the Senate. He promised to give her more responsibility and let her do this or let her do that, but they never really publicized what specific jobs he was giving her to do other than to use her, which it seems like it was the case of
That's all.
using
That was
her.
the whole thing.
Yeah,
That was the
like
whole reason why he
using
picked her.
her. Yeah, using her again for performative politics and
That's exactly right.
winning, and instead of doing her right because you did use her. And I mean, this is the like this is an emotional toll because I know she really felt like she could probably win this. And who knows? Can you imagine the next time in history that this could potentially happen where we have a black woman like so close get to actually getting the Democratic nomination unless she tries again,
But
you know.
London, but London, my thing is this right here. Things happen the way things needed to happen. We needed a big change here in this economy. I
Mhm.
keep looking at it from a businessman, from a business aspect,
Right.
from an economics point of
Yeah,
view.
Critical
everyone is.
thinking. Critical thinking.
It's not just you though. No, everyone is looking at it from an economic. Everyone had questions about the economics, right? Because everyone wanted to understand what policies like so let's just backtrack. What a lot of people often forget is that sometimes the policies of the previous administration don't the headwind doesn't happen until the next administration. So what happens is that like so some people were saying that like the policies from Obama are like what made the policies for Trump end up being better or like there it's hard trying to like break down economics to people and how economic theory works and like how everything goes. But the thought process is that like at this my thought process at this point is moving forward, right?
Yes.
Is he is the president. So
Yes.
one fairly. And so my thing at this point is how do we collectively and transformatively turn this nation into one that is equitable, one that is beneficial to everyone, one that we can thrive instead of just survive, one that we can hold, that we can work together. Because, again, listen, this is Trump's last, he can't run again. So he could get in there and go gung ho and get crazy and, all these things, which I honestly, I don't think that is going to
I
happen.
don't think it's going to happen either, London.
And the reason being is I feel like he has a point to prove.
Yes.
And I feel like he has a point to prove because he's already been called a felon. He's been already putting all these labels on him. And I think, and I'm going to believe in law of attraction, and I'm going to put this in the universe, and I'm just praying that what's going to happen is that he's going to try to disprove some of the naysayers about how bad he is as a person. And I'm hoping that, again, we saw him collaborate with celebrities. I didn't see like people, people didn't even want him to use his music on their trail.
Yeah.
He didn't have all these big celebrity endorsements and spent like what. So it's like that speaks volumes, especially in the world that we live in. We live in a social media based world. Like everything is social media. Like Instagram, following celebrities, this and that. And maybe it's showing that the world is changing. Maybe the world is like retreating back to, because there was a time, listen, and I don't know how old everyone else on here is. I'm a woman of a particular age, but what I do remember is that, remember when we were younger and TV was really, really greasy? Like you would put on like Jerry Springer and it was so greasy, like
Yeah.
or that like Maury Povich and they like F my mama, you are effing, and remember how crazy that stuff was, but we thought it was like normal. Or like I remember being in high school and girls would be 15 and they'd be waiting for the drug dealer boyfriend that's like 25, and people's mamas thought it was okay back then. Like it was like things were like normalized, right? Like they were okay. You know what I mean? Like nobody was asking these like questions. And then as the world like started to progress and like I guess get more progressive in thoughts and start thinking around like what morals or ethics, like things started to change, right?
Yeah.
But you still have people that have that old form of thinking, right? And still are expressive and still don't care about cancel culture and still just kind of say what they do and live a particular way. It's like the world changes so fast that we're not prepared for the way that it changes. Like just think about it. Think of how fast the world has changed. Like it went from us having VCRs to DVDs to flat screens to internet to being able to talk to people in Mars. I mean, like in our lifetime, and like this has never happened in any other generation's lifetime. The amount of change that has occurred. I mean, from even just the ability for blacks to be able to vote, to be able to be a part, like just the amount of change within a 50 to 60 year period that has happened is
Right.
like the
But
this
my thing is,
is crazy.
my thing is, I'm looking at us moving forward to this next 4 years from an economic standpoint, from a
And
financial standpoint, from a business standpoint.
right.
And we
And so
and as we move in that space like that, people really need to put their personal feelings aside and get on board to seize these financial opportunities that are going to present themselves and get out of their feelings because this woman lost as far as becoming president of the United States. And then in closing, we need to go ahead and put a message out there for the people that's still stuck in their heads about her not winning, to really move past it.
and the funny thing is that when they have that transition team, when they put your transition teams together, and they like, and everyone's all obviously everyone's concerned around Project 25, and I'm a person that like I always think about like propaganda and like I'm a like I said
They
I'm
quick to
emotional,
they quick
but
to talk about that Project 2025. They quick to say, well, you get prepared for the next 4 years because this Project 2025
Malik,
that
they
we
need
gonna
the people that need to that pass the people that are terrified by that need to go to the Heritage Foundation's website and read the thing and not listen it from secondary and tertiary sources. They need to
yeah,
go to
I
the
think
original. That's what they need to do, and they won't be so terrified because it
I
basically
think that
relates to the reduction of government.
I think that you guys is a big so that's like piggyback off of that for a second. I think that that's one of the dangers when it comes to Black community is that you know how they always used to say you put it in the book if you want to hide something from Black people, put it in the book.
Yes.
And
Yeah, that's
and
true.
and my thing is that like we have to learn the importance, and while we're talking about financial literacy, we have to learn the importance of our pol- public policy, government affairs, administrative law, because one of the things that happens, and just like so you can understand, in administrative law, right, you have comment periods. So you may have a statute passed, right, or an executive order, whatever, and so you have all these agencies under the cabinet, right? And prime example, so I, recently I had been doing some work with the Baltimore City Police Department with the consent decree, and one of the things that my job was to do some research analysis, and then to have things put out for public comment around changes with the consent decree, right? But if people are not actively participating and commenting, then the changes can't happen. And a lot of the changes that need to happen within our government start locally, right? So we don't see these federal things. The only thing federally that we really feel a lot of times is the taxes, right?
Yeah.
Or the interest rates when you're buying a home. But locally, you feel those elections. And I think that we need to start mobilizing around our local elections because again, you can make a lot of the changes that happen federally can be corrected statewide. So it's like, yes, you can talk about abortion federally, but we, even in our great progressive state of Maryland, shout out to our governor Westmore, we have now, we had in our election a option to include reproductive health in our constitution. And so the states have their own supremacy to do certain things, and people have to understand that. And so when you are voting, you have to make sure that you are voting locally for the right candidates that are in your state house,
Yeah.
that are in your city halls and your mayors, because that is where you feel the most changes, right? Like these vacancies outside, President like Biden or whatever, they can, whatever, send money down and send whatever they're trying to do. But those that funding, when we got ARPA, so Baltimore got like 600 and whatever, $35 million in ARPA funding, right? Which was here for COVID relief. And the mayor had complete autonomy of what to do with that money, right? A lot of people questioned what he did with the money. And he made good choice. Like, we actually were ranked, I think, the number 3 with some of the best usage of the money. What he decided to do was to use it on nonprofits. And I think, again, it may be a brilliant idea because that in turn is going to get you votes because the nonprofits are the tentacles to the community. And so if you're dealing with nonprofits that are benefiting from these ARPA funding and the people, and they're dealing with the people, then the people are going to vote for you. So it's like strategic thinking, right? Like
Yeah.
that's brilliant thinking. Like shout out, Brandon. Like,
Well, Miss London, I don't mean to cut you short, but we kind of like ran over time a little bit, with this episode. But we definitely gonna be bringing you back on to the score, so we could definitely keep on resuming on with this resume on with this conversation of the school. So I just want to, in closing, let everyone know: subscribe, like, share, comment on this
and
episode.
follow me at London_Rich. Like follow my Instagram. It's London LONDYN. Actually, it was private. I need to unprivate. London LONDYN_Rich. I'm starting the DeRichelieu School, looking for people to help, and I'm just trying to get things done. I'm here to serve, and I'm a subject matter expert, particularly when it comes to equity, when it comes to LGBTQ affairs. And I'm gonna speak my mind, and that's just me.
Pleasure having you on, Miss London. As a good friend, you keep doing what you're doing, and I'm gonna talk to you off of this podcast to school. In any event, you guys stay plugged in for the next upcoming episode of the school because we got another banger for you. Malik D, your financial credit guru, the hit maker, the score. Peace.
If only you knew, you would call up the credit guru. Now